Welcome. As Ella said, I'm Juliet. I'm the director of BISA. Oh, sorry, bit of a noise outside my window. We're really delighted today to be bringing you this academic blogging masterclass on the power of academic blogging. And we're bringing this to you in partnership with the Global Souths Hub. At BISA, we're always trying to find new ways to bring, I suppose, the academic voice into the policy world, with engagement and impact and so on. And so this is something we do take very seriously. So huge thanks goes to Zara Kadir, the founding editor, and Myra Mukherjee, who's the editor and website curator, who are running today's event and will be sharing, I suppose, tips and tools on academic blogging. For those of you who don't know BISA, for those of you who don't know BISA, we are the British International Studies Association. We are a learned society charity and membership association, and we promote and develop international studies through research and knowledge exchange and professional development. What do we do? Well, we have just under 30 research groups that we call working groups. They specialize in all sorts of different aspects of IR and international studies. We also have a very active postgraduate network, and you can find out all the details about these things on our website if you want to have more information. We also put on probably a couple of these virtual events a week, and they are free for anybody to attend. You don't have to be a member at all. So have a look on our events page for those things. We publish two really well-known journals, the Review of International Studies and the European Journal of International Security, and which, by the way, are completely free of charge to access through your membership. And we also have quite a large book series, which publishes the best in new international relations scholarship. There are actually, I think, just over 150 books in that series, and all of these things are published by Cambridge University Press. We also provide funding opportunities for our members. Have a look again online to see if you qualify. And we're at the moment we're extremely busy getting ready for our 50th anniversary conference, which is taking place in Belfast this year from the 18th to the 20th of June. Registration for panelists is now closed, but you can still register as an observer if you're interested. And the day before our conference, on Tuesday, the 17th of June, we run a lot of professional development workshops, particularly for postgrads and early career scholars. The workshops are on things like finishing your PhD or, starting to teach, how to get a research grant, the whole process of applying for lectureships or how to publish in a journal. Lots and lots of different workshops to sign up to. So again, have a look at our website. I just, again, I'd like to thank Zara and Mara again. Thank you very much. The Global South Hubs, I've just learnt works in collaboration with Third World Quarterly. And Third World Quarterly are one of our premium sponsors at our conference in Belfast. So I just wanted to do a bit of a shout out about that. Thanks very much. That's it. Over to you both. And looking forward to hearing all about academic blogging.
Thank you, Juliet. Let me just share the slides.
Okay, we're doing a bit of a tag, Mira and myself, so I'm starting off. But so thanks everyone for joining this webinar. Our presentation will probably be about 45 minutes. It'll be a bit interactive. As Ella said, we have a couple of questions for you guys, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. We'd introduce ourselves briefly. I'm Zara. I'm the founding editor of the Hub. My professional background is in academic research and scholarly communications from a number of global universities. I've got about 17 years of experience in communications, journalism, and marketing in lots of different fields: health, sustainability, climate change, tech, and now IR. I've set up and run 3 blogs, and I really love blogging because I enjoy talking to researchers about their work, and also I like bringing people together from all different regions and disciplines. And I'll hand you over to Mira to give her introduction.
Hi, thank you for coming, everyone. I'm the editor and website curator at the Global South Hub. I have a background in Russian literature and MA in creative writing, and I'm particularly interested in the intersection between creativity and academia. I write journalistically, creatively, and academically, which are being published on various platforms, and I previously worked in marketing communications. Our third person who's part of the Global South Hub team is Pernia Awan, who unfortunately can't be attending today, but she is our contributing editor and social media manager. And Pernia is a women's and gender studies specialist, and she's worked in public relations and journalism. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the hub. So we launched the Global South Hub in February 2024. We are a news and resource site, and we work in collaboration with two academic journals, as Juliet mentioned, Third World Quarterly and Central Asian Survey. And the hub supports early career researchers, particularly those who are connected to the Global South. Our key aims are to decentralize and decolonize knowledge production, and we hope the hub will initiate a shift in perspectives by platforming views and teachings that have been historically overlooked. You might be wondering why we're called the Global South Hub with the S. So we recognize the limitations of the term Global South, but we also positively see it as a space that can facilitate solidarity. We use the additional S in South to reflect the diversity of the field and highlight there is not just one Global South identity, culture, or history, but many. Yeah, so as I said, we launched in February 2024, which means we've just reached our first year, and we have published approximately one blog post per week. The hub continues to attract a global readership from over 155 countries, and a third of our contributors are based in the Global South. Our topics range from climate change to migration, economics to colonization, feminism to AI, and more. And we are particularly interested in how scholarship can be translated into action. We have recently set up the Global South's Best Contributor Prize, and the prize winner will be announced tomorrow. So if you're interested, keep an eye on our social media.
So in the next few slides, we'll explore why blogging matters, how it can amplify your impact, highlight your expertise, and bring your research to a wider community. So one of the first things we did while preparing for this presentation was to actually Google what is a blog. You'd think this would be a pretty simple question to answer, but there are actually lots of definitions. So one of the definitions that we thought was quite useful is from WordPress, which is the platform that we use to manage the site. And their definition says it's a regularly updated website with newer content appearing first, a bit like a diary entry. Blogs also tend to be quite conversational and accessible, often using a more informal tone to engage readers. Entries can be reflective and opinion-driven and may include the author's personal experiences, thoughts, and interpretations. Bloggers often tend to be responsive to current events or issues. So they may comment on news, trends, or ongoing debates. And the content on blogs is usually focused but flexible. And what do we mean by this? By focus, we mean usually by topic. And by flexible, mean there is no rigid formats. You're free to weave in storytelling, visuals, or multimedia elements, e.g. videos and podcasts, through a piece. So one of the things that we did as preparation for this presentation was to do a little bit of research ourselves to find out why do academics blog. And we found this study from 2020, which where a number of researchers, I think 20, were interviewed across different fields, including, I think, geography and IR. And this is the quote from the study that really resonated with us. The participant described blogging as a form of personal freedom, a space where thoughts and ideas can be shared without the constraints of traditional publishing. So we thought it was a nice quote to start off with. We also did a bit of outreach as well to find out why other academics blog. And we spoke to the editors of both The Loop, which is the blog of the European Consortium for Political Research, and also Lawrence Bradford, who is the senior managing editor of the LSE blog series. And Lawrence, this is actually a quote from Lawrence, and he gave 4 main reasons why he thinks blogging matters. So it helps academics contribute to mainstream news due to the short publication turnarounds. It helps readers understand the story behind the story through data and big picture analysis. And I think this is one of the most important main points, is it helps you think through the relevance of your work to real world events. And this is something that LSE blogs are really, really good at. They influence policy by presenting research in an accessible format to those in positions of power. So we have a question for you now, if you want to answer it in the chat. But why do you think academic blogging matters? You've obviously signed up to this event, so we figured you might have your own ideas on why it's important and what kind of impact it can have. So just for the next 30 seconds, just let us know what you think. Please share in the chat, and I'll just have a look if anyone's. Yeah, brilliant. So provides exchange of views to communicate your research. It is good to practice our writing skills. That's a very good point. And to engage with the wider public. Oh, it can be part of giving back to the community when sharing what are the results of your research are, to be heard, easy to suggest key points for people, to quickly reach a wider community, and it helps me keep up to date with global issues. That's a very good point as well. To communicate research faster and engage with audience. That's great. Thanks, guys. Okay. I'll just move on to the next slide, which I think Mira is going to start presenting.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your thoughts. We wanted to just add why we believe blogging matters. So one of the main reasons that we think it is important is because it decentralizes knowledge production, as blogs are inclusive, free to view, and accessible to a wider audience. They can, as you have also mentioned, highlight important global issues in a more immediate way, encouraging possible call to actions that individuals can implement. For instance, we did a piece which was based on BISA 2024 of a conversation that took place, which is why Palestine is a feminist issue, which directed people towards the BDS movement, which is the Boycott, Divest, Sanctions movement. And that is possible in blogs that is not necessarily applicable in other academic forms. And then Zara, I'll pass to you.
Oh, okay. So also, blogging can have a academic outreach and policy impact. So we know that blogging can increase visibility, but it actually can potentially boost academic citations. Talking to other bloggers about this, we recognise it's quite difficult to directly attribute these conversions, but there's definitely an increase in visibility. Many blogs also use Creative Commons licenses, which allows the media and other outlets to republish and amplify content. And recently, I think The Loop said that some of their blogs have been turned into a book. They can also have real influence on policy, and that's something that the LSE blogs regularly does. It's cited in government briefings. It's also, point number 4, good for communication and community building. So blogs can act a little bit like a global virtual common room for academics, fostering connection and conversation among researchers. And one of the things that people have said who've written for us, that they've wanted to connect with the other contributors, because it's sometimes quite a challenge to connect with people from different fields, and that's something that we're trying to facilitate through potentially setting up a hub LinkedIn group. Blogs can also create the space for conversational scholarship, as they offer more in-depth reflection than social media does, and it provides a safer, more thoughtful environment to explore ideas. And blogs can open doors and expand networks as well. And some of our contributors have seen direct benefits from sharing their work through blogs. Mira is going to expand on this a little bit in the next slide, but opportunities can include invitations to speak at events, moderate a session, or even collaborate on papers. Handing over to Mira.
Yes. So we wanted to just back up what we previously mentioned with feedback from our community. So Bethlehem Atfield wrote a piece on translating African realities with Indigenous perspectives in digital archives. And she came back with the feedback that her blog has made her LinkedIn profile more visible. And afterwards, she was also invited to be a panelist at the annual workshop organized by the American Literary Translators Association. Sanigor Kayat, who wrote a piece on juggling motherhood and mental health in her PhD, gained interest from outside her academic community and feedback from friends and acquaintances. This also meant that she gained more engagement and interest in her professional career.
So over the next two slides, we just wanted to share with you some blogs which you can contribute to. So it's not just about the hub. We've wanted to look more widely at the sort of IR and Global South blogosphere. So one goal of the hub was to host a community resources section, which you'll find on our site for researchers to find out information on journals, prizes, and funding. And as part of this, we did create a list of blogs that might be of interest to the community. So on this page, there's approximately at the moment, I think 60 blogs listed. So it's definitely not comprehensive yet, but we're developing it. But most are multi-author sites, but some are independent. They're coordinated by institutions, think tanks, universities, and journals across lots of different topics, such as international studies, global health, gender studies, and also on general research topics, politics, life in academia, and more. So yeah, we just suggest to have a look at this page, as there are lots of blogs that welcome submissions, and also lots of examples that you can learn from. And we're also open to suggestions of other blogs to include on this page, especially non-English resources and any resources that are not from the global north. So if you have any ideas, please send them on. We've got an email address at the end of the slide deck, which you can send them to. We wanted to go a little bit into a deep dive into some of the blogs that welcome external contributions. And most of these are multi-author sites associated with societies, institutions, or journals. However, some are independent and not topic field specific, like the Thesis Whisperer, which offers advice to early career researchers. I think it's been going on for about 10 years. It tackles subjects such as getting things done and productivity in academia. So similarly titled, there's the Research Whisperer, which is a multi-author site, and it's dedicated to the topic of doing research in academia. And I think they welcome submissions from guest editors as well. So as part of our research, as I said before, we spoke to the Loop and the LSE blog editors. The Loop publishes short pieces under 1,000 words, and you don't have to be a member of the society to contribute. They have a number of series threads where I think they're most popular is the Science of Democracy. I think that's the one that was made into a book. But we've also highlighted at the back of this slide deck some resources from them on how to blog, which we found very useful. Wrote Blog is the blog of the Review of African Political Economy and Policy and Politics journal, and they're looking for contributions as well. I don't think you have to have had an article in the journal to contribute as well. The European Association of Development EADI blog, which is called the Debating Development Research, and they have a fantastic series at the moment called Share Your Decolonizing Story Project. And Conversation, who we've talked to as well, they're probably the most well-known out of the blogging platforms. I think they have about 14 outlets in 14 different countries, and they're always looking for experts. And we often share calls on our social media channels when they're looking for experts. Okay, so the next slide is what to blog about. So obviously this depends on the blog you're submitting to. So it's important to read their guidelines and also other blogs on the platform. I can't stress that enough. You have to read, it's good to know what the types of topics that they're covering on their platform. Some blogs, as I mentioned before, have a series or a call out, but there are broadly a few categories and ideas that you can blog about. I know it sounds obvious, but you can blog about your own research. This could be in the form of a short-laced summary of an article, which Mira will talk about, but this could also include fieldwork experiences, methodological innovations, or behind-the-scenes insights. You could also write about academic opportunities and shared issues that aren't covered in mainstream academic public platforms. And we do a lot of this on our site. I think we published recently something on motherhood in academia and doing a PhD. This is what the Research Whisperer blog does a lot of. For example, they might include tips on writing a thesis or shared issues across academia, problems with visas, mental health. Then you could you could comment on other people's work, reflect on articles, books, or talks, and add your own perspective on a topic. And we always welcome event write-ups. And we've got one, I think, coming in the BESA virtual conference coming up soon. Topics you're passionate about, and I think that goes without saying, but topics that you feel are important. But it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's directly related to your academic research. Obviously, you have to think about your audience and what they care about. So it's important to know your audience. For us, for Global South Studies, this could be topics such as social justice, decolonization. Our scope is quite broad. We cover health, we cover lots of topics. But it's always important to read the blogs that you want to write to get inspired. Time reflections. What do I mean by that? You can always link your writing to current events, awareness days, or policy debates. And Mira worked on a fantastic listicle last year for Pride, which we've just featured a link to on this page. It was very, very popular. And it was just a listicle of books on the topic. I think there were 10 in total, but it proved very popular last year. Early stage ideas. You can always use a blog to test new concepts or pose open questions to the community, and the feedback can be super helpful. I think it's Mira up next.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk to you a bit about typical blog formats. So these are not necessarily completely distinct categories. There are crossovers and articles that exist in between them. But I would like to talk to you first about short form commentaries and expert opinions, which can be expressed by someone who has specialized knowledge in a specific field. You can have an interview or Q&A, and an interview can help you gain a different perspective or enrich your research. It can also help you build collaborations with other people who are working on similar topics. Listicles, as Zara stated, this can be a reading list, a list of resources, organizations that highlight research and information on a certain area. And they can also connect spaces that are focused on the same topic, which is really, really good for collaborations. You can have a feature, which is often more subjective, takes more of a personal approach, and can take into account multiple perspectives. That's instead of an explainer, which is an overview of a complex topic that can make jargon or specialized terminology into accessible information that is for a wide audience. The conversation has some really good examples of explainers if you're interested in that. You can have summaries of academic articles, which can be challenging. These pieces distill longer academic articles in a way that is readable and engaging. And these are useful to those who are time poor but require an expert overview on complex topics. The Policy and Politics Journal blog have a lot of these, which could also be useful to look up. And we also have lectures, talks, and event write-ups, which we have a lot of at the Global South Hubs. And these can be transcripts of what was said at an event or your personal perspective of an event. And we will be looking for event write-ups, which for BESA, which will take place this June. You can also have reviews, which are books, podcasts, or series. And you can also have videos and podcasts, which are a great way to translate your research into another medium, meaning you have the opportunity to reach out to an audience who may prefer to listen or view your findings. So the perfect pitch. If you're interested in contributing to an external blog or wanting to understand your ideas in a better perspective, creating a pitch can be really useful before you put together your blog piece. So these are some things to think about before putting a pitch together. Is your topic appropriate for a blog? Now, this is key because if you've got a very, very complicated topic, it might not be something that's applicable to a short form blog format. And is it focused enough? So you also need to think about where you're pitching to. Have you read the articles and what is their house style? And what topics are they specifically interested in? So I think as Zara mentioned, the conversation gives call outs. And it's always very useful to see if those call outs are something that your research that is connected to. Is the piece timely or original? Does it offer a fresh perspective, or is it captured in a fresh format? And what should you include in your pitch? What research have you done? Who have you spoken to? Why are you best placed to write the piece? What are your key points? What questions does your piece pose? And is there a call to action? Are you engaging with wider conversations? And including an enticing title is always a plus to make your pitch stand out. So now we'll be talking about how to craft impactful posts through storytelling techniques and making your posts accessible and engaging. And we wanted to ask you, what do you think makes a blog piece stand out? If you could put your answers in the chat, that would be great. A catchy title. Yeah, agreed. I think that can really work. Visuals, yeah. Visuals are also key. Any other thoughts? Engaging language, stories, yeah. Smooth flow of discussion, an informative subtitle, accessible language.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Mental maps and tables, yeah. And I think a lot of these points we're going to be covering in the next few slides. Thank you, everyone. So I'll be talking to you about storytelling and creativity, and then Zara will be talking to you about accessibility and structure in the next slide. Storytelling can transform factual content into engaging narratives by making your research more relatable and memorable. There are many ways to do this. Here's a few. So showcase your voice. Be passionate and don't be afraid to be informal where applicable. Think about how you can connect with your audience through that informal language. Include first-person perspectives. So don't be afraid to use language such as I, me, my, we, us, ours. And this can draw your reader in and create a more intimate, familiar space that makes your reader feel like they're part of the conversation. Consider using anecdotes or personal stories and essential stats. Zooming in and zooming out can also be particularly engaging. For instance, if you're talking about a real-world issue from a first-person perspective, then linking it to a bigger picture, that can make your reader feel like they're part of the narrative. Our contributing editor, Pernia, did a really good piece on the smog in Lahore, where she looks at how the smog affects her daily in her day-to-day life, and then zooms out about the bigger issue of climate change. You can also use literary devices, such as metaphors, verbal imagery, and analogies, and these can make complex ideas more understandable. It's important to create vivid, memorable mental pictures. And be personable. Don't be afraid to ask questions and interact with your reader. What do you want your reader to leave with? Do you want them to be inspired to act? What do you want them to take away? And what do you want to stick in their minds? I'll just pass over to Zara.
Thanks, Mira. So I'll now delve into some tips for ensuring your paper is easy to read and is structured logically. So one of our first key tips is be clear, concise, and direct. But what do we mean by this? Well, it's important to think about your key messages. What are you trying to convey? You need to get that across really quickly, right at the start. And also try not to overwrite and remember the length of the blog piece. You don't have that much, you don't have that many words. So you need to get to your point quite quickly. Don't use vague language or unnecessary explanations. But always remember to give examples to illustrate your points. Next point is very important. Try to avoid specialized jargon, but I know sometimes it is necessary. But when you do, make sure you explain it. Obviously, this does depend on the blog that you're submitting to. Some might be for a more specialized audience, but we suggest you include links to references and also short explanations. Always spell out your acronyms, especially in the first instance. If you also mention someone in your piece, don't take it for granted that everyone else will know them. So we always suggest giving some context as to who they are. And this could be very short. It can be like 3 words. It's describing who they are. Tip 3 is vary your sentence structure and length. So we know that academic prose, journal writing can be quite long. But shorter sentences make the text much easier to read and helps the message really stand out. And it's also more like natural conversation. So our tip 4 is about subheadings and SEO. So we have a lot of subheadings in our blogs, and we think it not only helps the reader skim information, but also aids search engine optimization. helping search engines find your content. Someone reading your blog post should be able to get the gist about what the paragraph is about, and even the article, from just reading your subheadings. Titles are also very important. After writing your piece, if you haven't got a title in your pitch, make sure you spend a good chunk of time thinking about your title. It can be playful and creative, and we welcome those. You can use alliterations or things like that, but ultimately it should be appropriate, specific, i.e. explain what this piece is actually about. It should also be unique, which means it should be different to other content already out there, and use topical keywords that people might be searching for. We also found that questions work really well, so we use quite a lot of questions. Our last two tips we put on 2 slides because we think they're very important. So visuals matter. Strong imagery can really enhance your message. We usually have between about 2 and 5 images in each post. And also these could be photographs, maps, as someone has suggested, tables. We've also included in the resources section of the slide deck some great tips on imagery from a post from EADI Debating Development Research blog, and we've included the reference on this slide as well. But when choosing your imagery, think first: do you have permission to use it? Is the source reliable? Is the image relevant and appropriate for the piece? And is it in the right format and size, dimensions, and orientation as well? Because our home images are in landscape rather than portrait. There are a few image websites such as Unsplash, Pixabay, Freepix, and Pexels. And I think Unsplash would be our preferred site, as they don't have AI photography. And my next slide is on editing. So we couldn't do a presentation on blogging without one on editing. It's so important, as blogs are in such short forms. Editing is really key, so don't skip this step. Although I'm sure if you're submitting it to a blog platform, the editors will make suggestions to you. We suggest editing 3 times. So edit first for flow and argument, and then maybe the next stage, clarity, conciseness, and readability, and leave some time in between each of these steps. And then your third final stage should be grammar and punctuation. And one of our really top tips is to get someone outside your field to read the piece. So ask a friend, not a colleague, to read the piece. You can ask both, but it's good to get a fresh perspective from someone who doesn't know your area. And I will hand you, I think, back to... Oh, no, it's me again. Our next couple of slides, or 3 slides, I think, is on AI and social media, newsletters and platforms. So we have some experience of using AI, and actually, if you'd asked me next week, I'm actually doing a course on it, but we don't actually have a policy on the hub yet. So it's always safer to refer to your own institution guidance or the guidance of the blog. We did ask the LSE blog if they use AI, and they say it's useful for assessment and promotional work, but the type of work that we deal with, sort of academic blogging, it demands an understanding of nuances that these tools can often miss. So before we go delve into the do's and don'ts, just want to say beware of AI bias. It is not always reliable, so you need to fact check everything. We feel at the hub that AI can support, but not replace the creative process. But it can be useful in the following contexts. So we think it helps with editing and clarity for translating, understanding some texts. We've also used ChatGPT, for example, to create a synopsis to ensure what we've written is meeting our original aims and is on message, because sometimes the synopsis can reveal something unintended. And this could be AI's interpretation, but it can also show that someone else may misinterpret what you've said. We do use AI tools such as Grammarly as well for spell checks and sentence structure and punctuation. It can also be useful for finding keywords and meta description for SEO. And the platform that we use is WordPress, and we have a AI what do you call it? Yeah, for SEO. I was trying to find plugin, that's the word for it, called Yoast that we use. And it can also help with promotional and title ideas. So our don'ts, and I know there's not that many up there, but they're very important. Don't use it to write your work. It's quite obvious when something's AI generated, I think still. Don't use it to replace your research process, as it's still untrustworthy and unreliable, especially given some topics have a real training sets are really biased. We also strongly advise not using AI for photographic images. However, we have used AI for a couple in this presentation, but we think you can use it for abstract images, but not for photographic images. And also, don't forget about the environmental impact, because AI processing uses a lot of energy. And also, I wanted to plug that we are doing a Decolonizing AI series. It's coming up in the next couple of months. And I think now I can hand you over to Mira.
So I'm just going to be talking to you about social media. So we're on quite a few social media channels, and we think it is key for building community. We share news from across Global South Studies Field, and we often reshare pieces that are not published by the Hub. And if anyone here would like us to share something on social media channels, we'd be very happy to do so if you just get in contact with us for our email address at the end. We've built a strong social media presence across our social media channels, and we have a monthly newsletter that also has a growing number of subscribers. So pros and cons of different social media platforms. There's lots to say about social media, and there are many different platforms that are used across the globe. So here are only a few. A social media presence, we would say, is key, and it's very advantageous to repost and requote your pieces. Do not rely on a blogging platform to solely promote your articles. You must be doing it yourself as well. So LinkedIn. With LinkedIn, for the pros, you get a professional audience, which is ideal for sharing academic achievements, publications, and professional insights. There's also networking opportunities, so you can connect with professionals, institutions, and potential collaborators. And LinkedIn groups are great for community building and reaching out to specific networks. However, for the cons, it is less interactive and engagement can be lower than other platforms, and it is formal and less creative than, say, Instagram. So Instagram, for the pros, has the visual appeal, which is effective for sharing infographics, research highlights, and event photos. You get live engagement, so you can see who views your stories and posts, which can offer interaction with followers, and it's great for brand building because it is image focused. But the cons are it is time consuming. Regular posting takes significant time. The algorithm is constantly changing, which can affect your visibility of the post. And you will need to create a link tree if you want to put links, link to elsewhere through Instagram, and you can't put links in specific Instagram posts. So Twitter or X. I'll start with the pros. So you get real-time engagement with Twitter, which is great for sharing quick insights, updates, and engaging with the academic community. With networking, it's great to facilitate connections with peers, researchers, and institutions. Cons, of course, is a character limit, which means you can't put any in-depth posts on there. It's got an ephemeral nature, so tweets can get lost in the feed quite easily. Lots of people are leaving Twitter or are inactive because of the new management under Elon Musk. And it is a biased algorithm, so certain tweets will be restricted. For instance, saying I'm on Blue Sky on Twitter will be sidelined and it won't be seen in the feed. Blue Sky, on the other hand, which becoming a replacement of Twitter. So the pros of Blue Sky is there's no algorithm games. So posts show up in order of most clicks. And you can create custom feeds, which is great. So you can follow feeds based on themes, not just people. Cons, however, it also has a character limit and it still has a small network. So not everyone is on Blue Sky yet. So your post might reach fewer people, but it is growing. And it's harder to be found. So search and hashtags are still catching up. People might not stumble on your post if they're not really, really looking. And it can be a bit of a learning curve. It's not difficult, but it's different. So if you're used to using, say, Instagram or Twitter, it can feel unfamiliar. However, we would say realistically, if you have a following on a social media platform already, it's a good idea to start from there and then build. Now for newsletters. Newsletters are another way to disseminate information. You get a direct connection as you can get analysis about who opens your emails. There's more control as you're not relying on a social media platform. You can also include exclusive content in newsletters. And consistency, we would say, is key for newsletters. You must be sending them out on a regular basis. There are lots of places that you can create, platforms that you can use to create newsletters, such as MailChimp, Dotdigital, or Substack. Substack is really useful as you can get people who will pay for your subscriptions, and lots of institutions and organizations have newsletters that you can learn from. We also have a monthly newsletter that goes out. So again, if you've got any content that you would like us to include in our newsletter, please get in contact with us.
So thanks, Mira. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this slide. There are lots of platforms that you can use, blogging platforms. My personal experience is with WordPress, which is a hosted platform. It's relatively easy to use, highly customizable and scalable. There is a cost, but we use it on the hub because it actually allows a lot of flexibility and autonomy. But the cons are that you do have to grow your own audience, but it does allow you to do this because there's several really good plugins that you can use. I don't actually have any experience of using Medium myself, but I do notice a lot more newsletters are using it these days, and I do read a few. I think it provides quite a clean, user-friendly interface, and it's excellent for reaching to a wider audience. However, I think it offers limited control over design and customization. But if anyone has any experience of that, we'd love to hear from you. I'm interested in Substack because it combines the blogging with an email newsletter. So it makes it a really strong choice for any writers looking to build and engage a dedicated subscriber base. You might have noticed we haven't listed LinkedIn up here as it's reliant on a specific social media platform, which means you can't easily cross-disseminate information across other social sites. And it provides less autonomy than with other platforms. And I'll just hand you back to Mira now.
So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So I'd just like to give a summary of what we've discussed. So whether you plan on starting up your own blog site or submitting blogs to external platforms, academic blogging is a powerful tool, as through them you can reach a wider audience and interact with people across countries and disciplines, create an online community, build collaborations, impact individual practice and policy, and build an online presence that is not reliant on social media platforms. Our top blogging tips are to be passionate about what you write, ensure a balance between specialist and a non-specialist readership. Social media is vital for promotion, but do not rely on it as your only online platform. And AI can support, but not replace your writing process. And finally, welcome feedback. Opening up the conversation leads to growth and opportunities.
And we just have a final slide. Just a plug to if anyone's interested in writing for us. We're particularly looking for pieces on scholar activism. Mira's doing a series on that. Global health, decolonizing AI, climate change, and decolonial thought. But we also have, lots of other interest in lots of other topics as well. There's also how to contribute to the hub page, and we've just provided our email addresses here. Before we go into Q&As, we also have a great resources section at the back of this slide deck, which we will be sharing the slides with BESA, and they'll be sending them out. So these were really useful, and there's a lot of resources from LSE, people we talked to, and also The Loop. There's a nice video there as well from the editors of The Loop on blogging.